around about 20 minutes of you listening to my voice. I hope that's not too dull for you. I hope it's very exciting. And then we're going to have about 10 minutes at the end for questions. So I'm looking forward to hearing more then. And I guess do a bit of housekeeping with the no fire alarms today. So if you do the fire alarm goes off, it's the real thing. Better head for your exit. And toilets, you'll probably know where your toilets are. But let me get started. I'm here today to talk about the local flood risk research roadmap. We had hoped to have Jonathan Hunter here to introduce it today, but unfortunately he couldn't make it. He sent me a few words, so I'll run through those quickly. He said he's really excited about this roadmap, and I think that is true. Jonathan's been championing it first, but he said he couldn't make it today. But he thinks it's a great way to set out the research needs of the local flood risk community, and to help us join up and work together. And what we're really trying to do is to try and deliver some real benefits on the ground. The other point he mentioned was that we've worked with some really good people in terms of getting here and where we are today. We've had a lot of local authorities and water companies on board, and some great help from the private sector and academic communities too. A number of people are on this call actually, which is great, as well as some great industry bodies, so people like the Sirens Urban Drainage Group and Sustrain as well. So why don't I get on and tell you a bit more about it? I'm going to jump to the next slide now. We think this framework is all about three groups of people. So there's the practitioners who are trying to do more on the ground with smaller budgets. We're all having to tighten our belts right now. And there are some of those who'll just sit and grumble, but there's many more who are keen to kind of innovate and find better ways of doing things. And those are the ones we're trying to target with this. There's the funders, and all of them have something in common. They all want to get value for money with every pound they spend. And what they want to focus on is funding the right research. And then there's the kind of third group, which I think is the main people we're trying to target today, which is the researchers. So those are people who are looking for the right questions so they can get their teeth stuck into. And I'm glad that we have some of the, I know for a fact we have some of the the best researchers in the world here in the UK. So I'm sure that we'll get some great answers to some of the problems that we can pose here. Thanks, Nick. What I'm going to do is I'm going to move on to the next slide. Now, this is actually what the framework looks like. This is the document. The way we've presented it is it's going to be a PowerPoint document you can read very quickly and easily and get your head around. The framework looks like there are 7 topics. So this is one of the topics that you can see here on the screen. And the way we focus on this is we've identified real-world problems. You should be able to see that highlighted in yellow now, that practitioners are experiencing, and there's 3 on this slide. This one's all about groundwater. And based on those problems, we've identified a number of research questions that we want to focus on answering. Now, the right-hand side we've called practitioner-focused research projects. Typically, those are projects that we, the Environment Agency, will probably have a go at answering, or someone like UCWIR, so someone in the industry, or perhaps the Highways Agency. Those practitioner-focused ones are the sort of projects where they will be more or closer to market, so you'll probably get something at the end that you can almost use straight away, and probably fairly low risk, so we know that we'll probably get an answer at the end of the project. So the sort of things it might include would be producing updated guidance, identifying good practice, that sort of thing. Over on the left-hand side, and this is the bit that I'm going to focus on today, are these strategic research questions. Now, these are questions which are more towards the blue skies end of the scale. Typically, they're a bit more risky, so you might not get an answer to the question the first time, or even the first couple of times you try to answer it. And really, they're the sort of questions where they could revolutionise how we do things. They're not about incremental benefits; they're about step changes. That's the sort of research that I think us in the Environment Agency and other industrial research bodies probably feel less confident about tackling. And that's why we want to speak to you. If you in the academic field can help us answer these questions, we want to do everything we can to enable that and support making that happen. So what we'd anticipate happening, for example, is that if you're putting together a bid for research council funding or EU funding, and you can highlight to us how you're working to help answer one of these questions, we'll try and pull out all the stops. So that might, well, certainly at the very least, we'd expect to be able to do things like write letters of support, and if we could make staff time available to you, or data or other resources to pave the way to make that project a success, we do everything we can. So what I'm going to do is take you through step by step on each of these topics that we identified as part of the framework. I'm going to talk you through the strategic research questions. So this one's all about groundwater flooding. And the three strategic questions we've got there are around how can we manage groundwater flooding cost effectively across a catchment. So typically at the moment, groundwater flooding is dealt with at a property level. You might include a sump or pump or something in your cellar. Probably won't do much. More likely you focus on warning using boreholes or something like that. What we wouldn't is it's only anything you could do that, and this is about revolutionising things, where you could across the catchment do something to make a difference. I don't know, perhaps you could plant trees across the whole catchment, or dig channels through your aquifers so they drain better or something. We'd be looking for some bright ideas for that. But certainly one thing we know is that our traditional thinking around flood management isn't effective for groundwater flooding. The second question is about how groundwater flooding interacts with other sources of flooding. So a particular problem we have is groundwater infiltration into sewers and surface water drainage. And what happens then is that those drains and sewers are not available to drain surface water flooding. This is a kind of perennial question, but we always have problems trying to link models together and do so in a way that actually makes sense and can be effective, and that doesn't bypass any data protection or licensing rules, that sort of thing. I think there's already quite a lot of work going on in this field, but I think there's always space for more. So actually, sorry, I've kind of merged two there. It's not just about the sewers, actually. Groundwater flooding also affects your river flooding, of course, as well. So you've got your winterborne streams and your sort of gravel floodplains like you have down the Thames, where you get your flooding that actually comes underneath the flood defences rather than over the top of them. Yeah, the final point is more of a focus, particularly on sewage pipes. So that's this one here. One of the problems we have is that one of the best ways to identify cracks in your sewers is to send a CCTV camera down there, and then you can survey the area. You can only really see leaks into a sewer when it's full of water, and when it's full of water, you can't send a CCTV camera down there. So the problem we're trying to tackle there is there a new way of doing surveys of sewers to identify where the groundwater infiltration is occurring? It doesn't rely on sending a camera down a pipe that's full of water. Okay, so that's groundwater flooding. The next topic is all about integrated modelling and mapping. Again, we've got three questions here. One of the probably isn't a new question, but I've heard it said before that speed is king, and actually getting the answer to questions quickly is often more important than getting a very accurate answer. So particularly that can be used in two ways. One is about real-time decisions, or it can be about being able to run lots of scenarios very quickly, so you can explore a potential future space and decide on the best route through there. Is there new ways of thinking that could we could run our models more quickly. So, for example, we've seen work that's happening on machine-based learning to simulate models. Question 2 is about bespoke models. So at the moment, to build a new model is often quite a time-consuming process. So if you're in a flood incident situation and you need a new model building of something that's not been modelled before, you either sort of make do without at the moment. Well, you probably do make do without. The question here is there some tools we could develop that would allow you to build a model much more quickly than we currently do for those bespoke scenarios? I guess another situation we could see this being used is that, particularly for local flood risks, about surface water and groundwater stuff, some of the best projects are the ones that are community-led. So whether they've gone about championing putting green roofs in or installing floods or designing for exceedance approaches. But communities often don't have the expertise to build their own models, and they certainly don't have the budget to build them. So if there's something that allows them to easily build a model, perhaps in a way that's almost as easy as putting Lego bricks together, that could be really beneficial, I think. And the final one, this is kind of again a perennial question, but can we improve the representation of physical processes and models? So we know that we're imperfect in how we represent physical processes and models. Where are the big gaps, and how can we do it better in the future? Okay. The next topic is about making the case for investment, and we've just got 2 strategic research questions here. The first one is about how you value the multiple benefits of local flood risk management. We've already got some projects working on this. Mr. Ashley is involved in one of them, and but we think this is actually a perennial question. So even when we've answered it, we'll probably want to go back and look at it again. Partly because we know existing evidence is pretty poor. But I think there'll always be a question about are you accessing these benefits as accurately as you could, and in a way that's simple and easy to do and reliable and robust. So we think that'll be a perennial question. The other question, strategic research question here, is about how you balance competing needs. So it's often quite easy when you can boil stuff down to a cash figure, but lots of the benefits we're looking at don't do that easily. And even if they do, sometimes the cash is going to different beneficiaries. People might value the cash in different ways. So, as an example, the Treasury often says that a shop loses business as a result of flooding. Well, that's no problem to us because the customers probably go elsewhere. So to the economy, that's no net loss. But to the shop, that lost business could be fatal. So how do you kind of balance those different needs when you're making decisions? This topic is about planning, building, and maintaining. So a lot of your asset type stuff. We've got 4 strategic research questions here. One of them is about are there new approaches for adaptive and resilient design for flood risk management? For example, people are getting used to doing things like building plug sockets up the wall in a property. We suspect that's not the end of it, though. I'm sure there are lots more brighter and new ideas out there. And we're not just thinking about properties as well. Something that's often affected a lot in floods is our infrastructure. Our roads, our railways, power stations, water infrastructure. Other ways that infrastructure can be made more resilient to flooding. One of the biggest costs, and something that's been in the news a lot recently, is about the maintenance of assets. I suspect that there are new materials out there that that could make asset maintenance or substantially reduce the maintenance of assets. I guess the gold standard would be maintenance-free assets. I'll give you an example of this. So everyone knows about the Forth Bridge and how by the time you finish painting it, it's time to start painting it again. Some years back, they found a new paint that lasted longer. So actually they could paint it and not have to start painting again immediately afterwards. So maybe there's new coatings, that, non-stick coatings that may reduce the build-up of sediments in drainage systems, or self-healing concretes that repair themselves automatically. I'm not sure, but I'm sure there's some new stuff out there. One of the problems we have as well with maintaining our assets is actually knowing where they are, particularly because a lot of the surface water drainage assets are under the ground. So having good maps of that, and I guess there's two things here really. One is knowing where the assets are, and also knowing about what condition they're in. So there might be ideas there about using, for example, ground penetrating radar, or some other sort of remote sensing from satellite, or even some sort of robots that you put into the pipe and it traces its journey through to the end. And linked to that is the final question, which is about once you've got your maps, how do you share data on that, and how do you link it into not just your assets in the ground, but everything else that goes on? So geology would be one thing, but you also think about the foundations of buildings, and how that changes your underwater flows, underground water flows. Now on to predicting and understanding rainfall. This is a real challenge, particularly for kind of convective thunderstorms that lead to surface water flooding. This is inherently uncertain, and I don't think traditional approaches are going to nail it for us. What we want to know is there any new thinking that you could be using to predict your convective thunderstorms? Certainly one of the approaches we've tried is in the probabilistic approaches. I'm not sure that our practitioners on the ground are finding that probabilistic warnings are giving them what they need, though. Perhaps there's something new there. At the other end of the spectrum would be our groundwater flooding that we experience through the very long, very wet winters like we had last year. So are there seasonal forecasts that we could predict, perhaps even 6 months ahead? Just two more left now. We've got making decisions in real time. And actually, I think this is quite an exciting topic, because it's all about gadgets and data, really. What we want to look at is real-time monitoring in sewers, and how you then down and how you act on that. So there's 4 questions here. One is about the convective rainfall, which we've already covered. The other 3 are how can we run models rapidly. I just remind myself, some of these strategic questions fitted into 7 categories, so I apologise if I'm repeating myself a little here. But I think the last 2 are unique to this category. The idea are, can we develop new tools to support decision makers in the face of uncertain rainfall and model forecasts? This is linked to the thing I mentioned before, which is we're finding practitioners are saying probabilistic approaches are leaving them too uncertain to actually act on forecasts. Then if they only get something with 10%, 20% confidence, then actually they just tend to do nothing beyond awareness. And if we're doing nothing, then why are we bothering to issue the warning? So is there some new way of thinking, or new way, a new tool or new technique we could use that actually makes those uncertain forecasts actionable? The final question here, which is about are there new approaches to capturing and sharing real-time data across stakeholders? So 2 bits to that question. Yeah, sorry, my webcam's getting darker. I don't think it's my webcam. It's the actually the world is getting darker. It's these winter months, even though I'm sat next to the next to the window here. It's just these winter months. Hopefully that's not just taken away from the experience too much. So yeah, capturing and sharing real-time data across stakeholders. 2 bits. One is about capturing data. So are there new cheap Raspberry Pi powered monitoring devices that we can install in our pipes and sewers to get better real-time information? And having gathered that information, are there better ways we can make sure it gets to people who need to know about it in real time so they can act on it? Down to our last slide here. This slide is shamelessly plagiarised from the Aqua SUDS roadmap, of which I think Richard Ashley had a large part to play. But our strategic research questions that we've identified, so again, there's some that were seen earlier, but how can you reduce maintenance, particularly for SUDS? And I think people are quite nervous about the amount of maintenance you might need for SUDS. Are there better ways to value multiple benefits of SUDS? How do we understand the societal perception and engagement about new approaches to managing stormwater? So I still feel that we just don't have a real grasp on whether you can really say to a community, we're not going to give you a concrete pipe, we're going to give you some swales, and people still feel protected when you give them that, or do they feel they've been shortchanged? And if that is the case, how do you kind of convince people that SUDS are just as effective or even better than traditional approaches? The final question is, this is a fairly open one, but what new SUDS technologies do we need to develop? It's a real new area to us, a fairly reasonably new area, SUDS are. What are the new developments we need to keep an eye out for? So that's our 7 topics. We will make them available after the call through Catherine. But now I'll pass the floor over to you if you've got any questions. Please use the chat box below. And I'll try to turn the light on and see if that helps. Okay, so there's a question about the strategic questions. A question there from Richard Ashley. Okay, a few questions come in. I'll start with one from Richard. It says, I know you are considering multiple benefits, but do you not think that we are still too focused on the problem and not the opportunities? I think that's a great question, Richard. And you know, we've talked before about tipping points and so on when you're looking at SUDS. Yeah, we're absolutely interested in that as well. And it's a shame with just one sentence, but we've tried to summarise things here, but you don't always get across the full scope of things you're interested in. Certainly, if there was research looking at opportunities, then I'd love to see it. We'd love to support it, in fact. So yeah, keep in touch on that front. Okay, I'm working down the list now. We've got one from Amanda Ragg. In practice, how would private finance fund SUDS? I'm not sure yet. There are a number of ways you could incentivise SUDS, and that's something that we'd like to look at more. one option would be to you could, well, yeah, I don't know the answers yet, but you could look at things like the Green Deal. I know the Green Deal hasn't been very popular, but the concept I quite like. So you kind of you borrow money at a low rate, and that's funded, and that can be used to fund improvements in your local area. But one of the problems there is that the cost of, I don't think we're charged a realistic rate for draining water away from your property. But I was looking at a report from, I think it's the Green Business, so Green Building. I'd have to check that for you. Amanda, drop me an email and I'll tell you some of the ideas we had about that. But the bottom line is that there are no answers, no firm answers to that yet, and we're looking for help in deciding identifying what they are. I'll move down the list again. So, comment from Catherine there about what the international best practice on them. Absolutely, yes. That's presuming in regard to the private finance funding subs. Another question: are any of these questions being tackled well anywhere else? Catherine, did you mean internationally or by organisations besides FCERM.net? I think probably the answer either way is not that we're aware of. So this roadmap we've developed by speaking to quite a wide range of people, and people are telling us these are still the problems. Things may have changed since then, but we'll keep an eye on that. Okay. Moving down the list, Matthew Hogan. Okay, so having identified the research questions, both strategic and practitioner, what are the next steps the agency plans towards answering them? So I'll talk about the strategic ones first. We've been promoting those through, well, the main ones have been through the Environment Agency. You may be aware of the Joint DEFRA and Environment Agency Research Programme. We're promoting projects through that, as well as through the UCWER Research Programme. And actually, we're really pleased this year. We've had about something like 10 proposals been successful through those two routes. And I'll show you them briefly now, actually. So these are the practitioner ones. The green ones are the ones. Can everybody see that? The table with the green and red boxes on. Great. Okay. So these are practitioner-led ones that we are expecting to go ahead next year, focusing on things like groundwater mapping and management, monitoring subs performance, subs symbology, and so on. So those are already somewhere in the bag. We have made less progress on pursuing the strategic research questions, but we see this as one of the first steps to making that happen. I think probably in the environment here, in the environment, I have less influence over how we can get those strategic research questions delivered. But we'd love to hear more from you if you can help us. Just working down this list again. Back to Richard. Oh, Catherine, my chat window's disappeared. I can't see any of the questions. Hi, Catherine. Sorry, I'm a bit stuck. I can't see any questions. Ah, yes, that helps. Okay. Okay, so back to Richard Ashley. He says, I have, I think, managed to convince the chair of the APPG or EBE that our inquiry report should start from an opportunity frame, only fixing the problems in transit. So that's great, great news, Richard. So, yeah, come and talk to us more about that. Nick Mount, I can see the value and importance of these questions, and there are several I'd love to get my teeth into. So the challenge is always identifying the route to funding for research. How might the agency help academic colleagues with this? So now I'd anticipated that you guys already know which funding calls are coming up and um, what your options are for applying for funding. And what we'd anticipate is that you guys come to us with some of your ideas or proposals, and then we can work with you on supporting your bid through letters of support and so on. Are you saying, Nick, that you're not sure which opportunities are out there, or whether those opportunities are relevant for these questions? No. Okay. Okay. I've got a message there from. So I've got a message there from Amanda that says, personally, I'd like clarification as to how we become aware of the calls. Um, so the calls aren't calls that are hosted by the Environment Agency. I expect them to be called from NERC, EPSRC, are probably the likely candidates for this sort of work, and the EU as well. Here we go. There's more clarification from Nick there. It may be that some of these questions fit calls quite neatly, others are going to need more speculative bids to open calls. The latter often benefits from some additional funding, perhaps from the joint programme. Is this a possibility? Yes, I think it is a possibility. It needs working through to find the right project and so on. But yeah, for the right questions, that is a possibility. We had a question there about how you become aware of the calls. I'm not sure how you become aware of them. Uh, ones that are not from the environment. So are you saying that you're not given enough notice from the research council? I'll wait for a. Okay. So Amanda says she looks regularly on the research council website but hasn't noticed these areas coming up. Perhaps that's something we can work with the research councils on offline. I'll keep working down the list here. A question from Richard there. I guess you will try to ensure the flood defence grant and aid bid approach, whereby ES, I guess that's ecosystem services, and other benefits are considered, will also be included in how we value the use of subs, i.e. the entire spectrum of water management looked at in the same way. Yes, that's right. That would be the ideal. I don't think it's where we are at the moment. There's a lot of siloing that goes on, and if we can move closer to a more holistic approach, that would be a good move. Another question from Richard Ashley. Given that Jim Hall et al. Are looking at systems of systems, are you also considering the much wider implications of interacting systems? Interacting systems of systems. Or as this is a local flooding, you can push too far. I think that's a really good point, actually. I think local flood risk is really about, or very much about, the urban environment, and within that you will have systems of systems. You've got lots of different infrastructure acting together there. We probably haven't got a specific strategic research question on that. I should have mentioned at the beginning, actually, one of the points that Jonathan Hunter made was, I wanted to stress, was that this framework is up for debate and will continue to be up for debate throughout its lifetime for the next 5 years. If there is an interesting new question like that, we can work in and add it into the mix, and we can plan to sort of review it each year and make sure we're not missing those kind of questions. So, Richard, if you drop me an email with some more details, we can talk about that some more. Something from Nick Mount. The key thing is to be connected to the council so you get call updates. Okay. So that's some advice for Amanda there. The question from Richard Ashley. Funding could be attained from many areas of the system from systems approach. Absolutely. I think I probably need to know a bit more about that, Ricky, though. If you could give us a call afterwards, I'd love to talk to you more. Okay, we're 10 minutes over the time I promised we'd finish up. Still a few more questions coming in, so if people are happy to stay on the call, I'm happy to keep talking. Nick says, okay, thanks, Catherine. I note that your strategic questions remain quite physical in focus. At the local scale, the behaviours and actions of individuals and groups can be critical in impacting flood risk. Understanding this sort of thing will need a strong social, economic, as well as physical focus. Yeah, I agree. We did have some questions there which were more social. So particularly around how communities respond to SUDs and whether they trust them and believe them as much as they do traditional approaches. If you think we're missing a social aspect in some of the other areas as well, and there's some key questions there, yeah, I'd love to hear it. Come and talk to us, Dick. Any more questions? Okay. So if there's no more questions, thank you very much.